Hello everyone, and now welcome to game 2 in the series between Iron Man's Haz and Iron Man's Ian here on Achillean Waste. Ian spawning as the blue Zerg on the bottom right hand side of the map. Meanwhile, Haz spawning as the red Protoss on the top left. Excuse me. Now, Haz versus Ian, Protoss versus Zerg on Achillean Waste, and it looks as though we are going to be going into a Forge Fast expansion. Pretty standard play here on a map like this. You want to make sure that Zerglings do not run inside your base all too quickly. Now, Haz was opening up in game 1 with a very harassment heavy build. He was able to hide that Stargate, but unfortunately, Ian had his own harassment in mind as well. As opposed to getting up and just trying to drone up as quickly as possible and just macro as many drones for the economic advantage, he trained up a lot of Zerglings. Once the Zerglings were able to get inside the base, it became an early race to see who could deal more damage to the other. Ian came out slightly ahead with, I believe, 12 worker kills compared to 8. And then with the Zerg macro ability just being able to hit so many injects, he was able to even then come further out ahead and able to take the victory, reaching 200 supply first. Now, Has learned a lot in game 1. He knows that he cannot fall behind in upgrades, and he also knows that he needs to be extremely effective with his harassment. If his harassment is anything but short, then Ian will be able to come back out on top and deal even more damage. With that, I believe Haz will want to try and finish this game relatively early. He doesn't want to get to the late game, because once the late game does come around, even on a map like Achillean Waste, especially on a map like Achillean Waste, where the Zerg player can take this base and this base with relative ease, you don't want the Zerg to have a 4 base over 3 base advantage early on against Protoss. The reason being that 4th base doesn't even need to harvest any minerals. You just really need the gas early on. And if you have a much more gas intensive army, you are more technologically advanced, and with that, infestors, broodlords, mutalisks, roaches, upgrades, all of those things really tip things in favor of the Zerg player here. Now, we are going to be seeing Ian set up a hatchery at the 9 o'clock position, the 3 o'clock position, close to about the 3-minute mark, and it will be completed here in just a second. The timing on this, the extractor was placed down shortly after the hatchery went down, and now we are looking at getting that metabolic boost. So, I believe this was actually grabbed pretty early then, based upon the timing, so I missed out a little bit there. But that does mean metabolic boosted lings will be out on the field. Ian has been playing a little bit of a mind game, at least to me as a caster. I would normally think on Achillean Waste, you want to play a longer game. You have such a strong ability to play a long game, because as a Zerg, you can get this 3rd and 4th base up and still defend it pretty easily, and you can do it faster than anyone else. But instead, Ian has been rather aggressive with Zerglings early on and getting metabolic boost. Perhaps Ian is going to do what we saw in game 1, get a couple rounds of injects off, and then all of a sudden instantly train up 16 Zerglings overnight, and then have them swarm up inside the base. Meanwhile, Haz should have a good idea that this pylon does have a sight on this set of rocks and barracks rocks over here as their hit points are falling. This is hugely dangerous if the Zerglings are able to get inside the base. The rock's already about halfway on life. It does take quite a while for Zerglings to finish it off though, but this is a slow death. As we can see now, Warp Gate coming in. Is the sentry even going to make its way over? All you need is one sentry to deal a little bit of damage. Back over here, one probe, I believe, was destroyed. And if the Zerglings finish off these rocks, then Haz is going to have a very difficult time. He's going to be forced to pull probes. He's going to lose a lot of precious mining. And Haz is not paying attention. Alright, apparently you got about over a minute of me talking about destructible rocks. I would have thought Haz would have spotted this by now. No, instead he actually moves out with these units. The sentry finally spots this, realizes something's wrong, now needs to warp in some pylons, and it's going to be too little too late as the Zerglings are able to get inside the natural expansion. Here you go, Zerglings battling up against the probes, sentries getting in some easy shots here, and everything has been scouted out over here at the natural expansion. What are the Zerglings looking to do? Are they going to be able to get up the ramp? No. Beautiful wall off there. And Haz paying attention at just the right moment, able to deny scouting inside the main. Now, scouting inside the main is very sparse. That's what we know since we do have a master view of what's going on. As we now see drones being moved over to that third base here. This is exactly what I was talking about for Ian. Ian was just aggressive enough with a handful of Zerglings, only a half a dozen. And now we see more drones being brought over. We currently have, 54 drones compared to 48 probes, but the income is much, much higher for Zerg, not only because he's not harvesting gas, but he has less diminishing returns. 14 workers here, 16 workers here, 16 workers here, exactly perfect saturation. Meanwhile, Haz has 19 over 24 and 16 over 24, and he can only continue to add probes on the bases that have more than 16 workers on the mineral patch, meaning he's not going to be getting as many minerals per minute per worker. Zerglings now testing this front door once more, sees that there are sentries and zealots. There are also a lot more gateways and warp gates being placed down. We see a total of 7 warp gates, 8, 9. This could be a 2-base 9 warp gate push, which I would not be surprised if Haz was actually going for. Level 2 weapons upgrade now coming in. We are going into charge for those zealots. Surprisingly not going into blink, but we are also going into Archon. So we are going into charge lots extremely early in this game, and Haz is hoping that this 2-base push does deal a lot of damage. Now, if I was the Protoss player at this point, I would also be investing in the shield upgrades, as the Zerglings will want to get up in close next to these Archons, which will be making their way out onto the field, and try to take them down. Here you go. You can see that there are zealots and sentries all working together. We are now going into level 2 armor upgrades. Yeah, if you have time to get armor upgrades, might as well just go for shield upgrades if you are going to go into zealot charge. However, we all know that sometimes players like to confuse me and really not go into zealot charge, as we now see High Templars warping in. All right, Changeling has been dropped into this group here. Is it going to get scouted out? I do hope it will, but it doesn't look like that will be the case, as now Archons are making their way out here. 1-2 upgrades as the sentry is getting caught out of position. This is not a good fight for Haz. Haz does have the superior army, as the Zerglings are now going to try and flood in on the far side. There are pylons here, but there's only one photon cannon to hold off the swarm. Archons now making another push in. We can see that the Archons are upgraded, dealing 43 damage to biological units, as the fungal growth now lands onto that Archon, slowing it down. Zerglings now trying to engage. The Archon should be going after Zerglings instead of going after those spine crawlers. The Zerglings actually have higher DPS per hit point, as we now see another fungal growth hit. Ian, perfect timing on those spine crawlers, rooting themselves and finishing them off in just a second or so. Archons now need to make their way up the ramp and finish off this next fight here. What's going to be happening? Those Archons still rolling through 75 versus 101. It looks like this could be the game for Haz, as Haz may be able to split this. 5 Archons still on the field, some of them with nearly full shield points, and that is going to be nearly impossible to stop. Haz, I believe, has already got past the tipping point, and there is the GG. Ian losing game 2 in this set, as Haz and Ian are able to split a point each. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Hope you guys enjoyed the series. Hope to see you guys on Battle.net. Please stay tuned for the second set of games.